Hello everyone, Dave Seaman welcoming you to another edition of On the Bench with Columbus Wire. Justin Boggs joins us this evening. And Justin, the Columbus Blue Jackets are arguably having their worst season in history, and standing right now at 2-12 and 2-12-1. And it doesn't seem like we're seeing the team progress like we should at this point.
You're seeing some changes out on the ice. They've gone with a new system, a slightly different one. They've tried to cut down on some odd man rushes, using the forwards to kind of pinch in the middle of the ice. It hasn't done it. It didn't do anything against Philadelphia in the first game against it. They lose 6-3. That game, Philly did not really play the third period. Columbus got a couple garbage time goals, essentially. This was a blowout. They keep getting blown out. These losses are not just your 3-2 losses where they could have won the game. This is turning into an every night blowout situation. And Mark Letetsu, the new player for the from the Pens, he comes in. I think he put it best. He said that you can kind of get the sense that these guys are getting used to losing, and that's not a good sense to have out on the ice.
You know, even going back to last season, the Blue Jackets, they've only won 4 or 5 regulation games in their last umpteen games. You know, you talk about the culture of losing. How do you break that?
That's a very good question. You know, you look around, fans have a million different answers, whether it's within the coaching staff, whether it's your captain, whether it's your general management. There are so many things that are fundamentally wrong right now. You can't just point to one thing and say, if you fix that, things will be better. At the beginning of the season, they said, well, it's probably within our special teams. If we can fix the power play and penalty kill, then all will be good. Well, guess what? The power play has actually played pretty well of late, but they are nowhere close to putting together a winning squad.
Well, and let me even throw this out there because, you know, early in the season, the Blue Jackets were losing 1-goal games. You know, in the last 3 games, and we're talking about a 4-1 loss to Toronto, we're talking about 9-2 in Philadelphia, and 6-3, you know, against the Chicago Blackhawks. The team's getting healthy. They're adding pieces, but it seems like they're almost regressing.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, they're going to get a little bit more healthy, too, with Jeff Carter. He's going to be back here in the next, possibly maybe this weekend. And then Mark Dekanich is doing a rehab stint in Springfield tomorrow night and on Friday night. He should be back in the lineup this weekend, and potentially that could be a big boost to this team because of how much Steve Mason has struggled here early on. Steve Mason has the worst goals against and save percentage out of all starting goaltenders in the NHL.
And I think the question is, you know, where do we go from here? I mean, I think everybody in Columbus was calling for the heads of Scott Housen. We're calling for the heads of Scott Arniel after the debacle in Philadelphia, and yet nothing.
Right. Well, as Scott Arniel said, and I completely agree with this, he said in his post-game press conference against Chicago that this team looks like they're skating in quicksand. Now, how's that the coach's fault? How can the coach get guys to stop skating like they're in quicksand? I don't know. I don't think it's up to the coaching staff on that matter. I think you have some leadership issues within the locker room, and I'm not trying to suggest Rick Nash is not a good leader. I just think that there's not someone in that locker room taking charge and getting these guys together, because I think the answer has to be within the room. This is the one of the highest payroll teams in the league. They cannot spend any more money. They are right at the cap. They can't go out. They can't add a player or two. The only thing they can do is a trade to be able to add anyone to the team. So it's not a good situation for them just simply because their flexibility is so limited. But keep in mind, some funds did free up this week.
Those funds, of course, coming from the coaching ranks.
Yes.
Former Blue Jackets head coach who was fired 2 years ago, Ken Hitchcock,
Right.
is given permission to talk to St. Louis, and within hours became St. Louis's new head coach.
Right, and this was amidst rumors that he would return back to the bench and coach the Blue Jackets through these doldrums. But, you know, you look at the reason why Hitchcock was let go was because obviously they had one part of a bad season, and a lot of people thought he didn't handle young players well, especially Nikita Filatov. Filatov ends up, he's back in the minors. The Hitch style of hockey, I think they were a little bit quick to pull the trigger on Hitch, and I think maybe Mike Priest might have realized that, even though I think those rumors were untrue. Mike Priest and Ken Hitchcock were seeing a lot together in these stands, watching watching practices and watching games together. I think there was a little bit of a trust between those two, and it almost seemed obvious that maybe he would go back to Hitch to lead this team.
You talk about moving forward, the Blue Jacket schedule coming up. You got the Winnipeg Jets, coming into town. Claude Noel Joy coming back to town this weekend. Minnesota's in town next week, and then there's a road trip after that. You talk about Carter possibly returning, Dekanich possibly returning. It sounds like Christian Uselis is 3 to 4 weeks away, from returning at least. Where do we go? It has to come from the players.
It has to. Absolutely. These guys have to find the answer themselves. And, maybe it's Rick Nash getting in there, maybe being a little bit more vocal, taking a leadership role he hasn't stepped up to do before. But you look around the room, and the people that are struggling are the guys who've been with this team for a number of years. Derek Brassard, R.J. Umberger, Antoine Vermette, Feder Tutin. These are your guys that you should be leaning on, and they haven't been there for you.
Well, as they turn the lights off here in Nationwide Arena, that wraps up another edition of On the Bench with Columbus Wired. Justin, thank you so much. For Justin, I'm Dave. We'll see you next time.